With massive salad buffets, family-sized steaks, and a hookup for your horse, nothing beats a steakhouse. But with a lot less yeehaw going around these days, when it comes to these chains, where's the beef? A hybrid of casual dining between a buffet and a steakhouse, Sizzler first opened its doors in Culver City, California in 1958. It offered quality food like New York strip steaks with a potato and bread for cut-rate prices, even banning tipping to keep the price of a family dinner as low as possible. Within 4 years, 100 Sizzler restaurants had opened, primarily in California. Sizzler trudged along as a national chain until the 80s and 90s, introducing signature items like garlic cheese toast and an abundant salad bar called a buffet court with a sundae station, soup options, and taco bar.
You gotta put down at least 3 plates.
Aligned with 2 mid-century dining concepts, steakhouse fare and the all-you-can-eat salad bar, Sizzler struggled to maintain relevance. In 1996, the company shut down 136 restaurants and let go of 4,600 employees, exiting the Midwest altogether. Sizzler filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2020 after COVID-related shutdowns severely impacted business. As of 2023, Sizzler was down to around 80 locations, most of which are in the company's home state of California. A restaurant pod in Columbus, Ohio became the home of the first York Steakhouse in 1966. The restaurant successfully expanded into a chain over the next decade by opening locations in shopping malls. In 1976, the restaurant division of the General Mills Corporation purchased the entirety of York Steakhouse and grew it even more. At its peak, nearly 180 York Steakhouses were serving up steak, chicken, and fish, with a potato, roll, and salad included.
Looking for a great lunch at a great price? Well, York has lots of them.
In the 80s, mall sit-down restaurants disappeared in favor of food courts with fast food options. Even the reasonably priced York Steakhouse couldn't compete, and the number of locations slowly dwindled. By 2023, only one remains, in York's hometown of Columbus, Ohio. For residents of New York and New Jersey, Charlie Brown's Steakhouse was an institution. The elevated, family-friendly restaurant offered premium cuts of beef and prime rib with the trimmings, as well as a self-serve salad bar. The first Charlie Brown's opened in 1966, and within 4 decades, nearly 30 would cover New Jersey.
Because if loving steak is wrong, I don't want to be right.
But the company's slow decline began in 2010. With poor revenue across the whole chain, operator CB Holding Corporation shut down 20 of its 49 locations. 9 restaurants remained open, and operators even opened 5 new steakhouses by the decade's end. But when COVID hit, the 14-outpost chain across New Jersey couldn't survive months of dining room closures. 8 of the 9 steakhouses permanently went out of business, but Charlie Brown's parent company later opened 1 more. As of 2023, 2 are open for dinner, 1 in Woodbury and 1 in Scotch Plains. The 80s and 90s spawned a new era of casual steakhouse chain concepts. Outback and Texas Roadhouse debuted then, and still dominate the sector decades later. They far outlasted another contender, Lone Star Steakhouse and Saloon. It served up an idealized version of Texas cuisine, huge steaks with big portions of seafood and salads. Originating in North Carolina, by the end of the 90s, there were 265 outposts.
I've been working here for 44 years. Ain't nobody ever ordered nothing but T-bone steak and a baked potato.
But the chain suffered huge financial blows during the economic crisis of 2009. At that point, Lone Star's parent company closed 27 of its 179 restaurants. By January 2017, just 16 remained in operation, and as of 2023, there's just 1 Lone Star left in Guam. Launched in 2004, BLT Steak sought to combine French bistro vibes with chef-centric reinventions of classic steakhouse favorites. In the early 2000s, it grew into a moderately sized string of elegant establishments, offering familiar fare like porterhouse and New York strip steaks, wedge salads, oysters, and their famously massive fresh-baked popovers. But COVID and the subsequent financial fallout would put BLT Steak almost out of business. Parent company BLT Restaurant Group shut down the dining rooms of its flagship Manhattan restaurants during the lockdown. In April 2020, BLT received a $3.3 million PPP loan to keep the business alive. But with no on-site dining and limited staff, it wasn't able to receive PPP forgiveness. With its revenues tanked, BLT shut down 4 of its U.S. restaurants and filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in March 2022. As of 2023, 5 BLT Steak restaurants are open overseas, with 2 remaining in the U.S., along with 2 BLT Prime locations. Claim Jumper tried to occupy a spot at the apex of the chain restaurant pyramid. The average outlook promised the comfort of a dining at a chain, but with nice steaks, chef-crafted dishes, top-shelf cocktails, and wine. Following the massive economic problems of 2009 and 2010, Claim Jumper filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. At the time, the company had amassed as much as $500 million in debt and had as little as $50 million in assets. Back then, 45 Claim Jumper restaurants were still pulling in customers in the Midwest and on the West Coast. The chain survived bankruptcy, but it's a much smaller operation than it once was. In 2023, only 11 Claim Jumper steakhouse and bar locations remain operational. In 1963, actor Dan Blocker, star of the popular TV western Bonanza, helped open the Bonanza Steakhouse. Within a few years, Blocker sold the place, and in the 80s, Metro Media Restaurant Group bought both Bonanza and rival outpost Ponderosa, operating them as one chain with 2 names. By the early 90s, about 700 Ponderosa steakhouses were open in the US and elsewhere. Patrons could order a steak or massive cheeseburger from the menu, or they could hit the hot buffet for fried chicken, pizza, and desserts, as well as a salad bar.
That gold never did belong to the Ponderosa in the first place.
Metro Media filed for bankruptcy in 2008 and was able to work out of it within a year, but the steakhouses began an irreversible pattern of closure. By 2011, about 2/3 of the locations that were open a decade earlier had shut down. In 2023, a combined 21 restaurants are still kicking, 2/3 of which are Ponderosa and the rest Bonanza. In 1974, Bill McCormick and Doug Schmick, the owner and manager of one of Portland's oldest restaurants, Jake's Famous Crawfish, branched out to launch McCormick & Schmick's. A moderately priced yet classy establishment, the restaurant expanded its menu to include dozens of seafood options, as well as steakhouse-style cheeseburgers and classic steak dinners. It also grew into a sizable chain. At the time of the chain's initial public stock offering in 2004, it operated 51 locations in 22 states, and that number grew to 80 by the time of its 2012 purchase by Landry's Hospitality Group. Just 5 years later, only 55 restaurants remained. The new owner blamed the closings on the previous overexpansion into small markets. In 2023, roughly 26 McCormick & Schmick's eateries are still operational.
I'm Stuart Anderson. For a great steak at a great price, ranching experience gives my Black Angus restaurant the edge. It's a steak worth going for.
Restaurateur Stuart Anderson opened the first Black Angus steakhouse in the Seattle area in 1964. Black Angus grew into a phenomenon as a casual, affordable steakhouse that offered a sit-down experience with low prices. The chain's first sales gimmick was a full dinner, steak, potato, and soup or salad, for just $2.99. Anderson sold the chain, but stayed on as an executive, helping to grow the company to over 100 locations across the American West by the 80s. But that number dropped to 69 when parent company ARG Enterprises filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2009, citing debts as high as $500 million. That was actually the chain's second bankruptcy. In 2004, Black Angus filed for bankruptcy and attempted to salvage business by revamping its menu and introducing takeout. Black Angus hung on, and by late 2020, operated 34 outlets. At that point, it announced the temporary closure of roughly half of all restaurants. As of 2023, 32 Black Angus steakhouses remain alive. At Quaker Steak and Lube, the burgers are towering, the wings are plentiful, and the steaks are gigantic. An institution in Pennsylvania and surrounding states since it first launched in 1974, Quaker Steak and Lube outposts feature an old-fashioned service station theme.
With over 40 years experience, this is a brand that isn't going anywhere.
By 2014, Quaker Steak hit hard times. The company reportedly failed to make loan payments, and Wells Fargo sued to recover some of the outstanding $4.14 million in debt. That came right around the time a franchisee sued the company after an attempt to expand into Texas flopped. In 2015, Quaker Steak and Lube filed for bankruptcy, and truck stop company Travel Centers of America acquired the chain. The purchase was completed within a year, and TA ran Quaker Steak as a separate division, while also opening a few new outlets inside of its travel plazas. Still, Quaker Steak isn't nearly as far-reaching as it once was. Down from 59 spots, it now numbers just 34, primarily in Ohio and Pennsylvania. Sirloin Stockade helped popularize the idea of the family-oriented, moderately priced steakhouse, starting out in 1966 with one restaurant in Oklahoma City. In addition to offering full steak dinners, each outpost also featured a large buffet, ice cream, and a full-service bakery. Locations were easy to find, with most properties including an oversized metal or fiberglass cow on the premises. When competing chain Golden Corral acquired Sirloin Stockade in 1982, the steakhouse brand consisted of 118 company-owned restaurants and 71 franchised outlets. The chain still functions as it once did, as a steakhouse and buffet place all in one, but it has significantly scaled back operations. As of 2023, just 9 Sirloin Stockades are open for business, with most of them situated in Texas. Timber Lodge Steakhouse, a beef-focused restaurant with a woodsy theme, started its life in 1991 as Minnesota Steakhouse. Founder Doran Jensen instituted the name change and started expanding in the mid-90s. Timber Lodge grew, going from one location in Minnesota to over 15 spread across several states.
Bon appetit!
Oh, good God.
But the company's success was short-lived. In 2006, Timber Lodge filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Within 2 years, institutional food service company Taher acquired the steakhouse chain. Still, restaurants continued to close, and the demise of 2 Minnesota locations in 2009 led to a lawsuit over unpaid lease agreements. As quickly as Timber Lodge had launched outlets in the 90s and 2000s, it shut them down in the 2010s. As of 2023, only one was left in Minnesota. For 4 decades, Del Frisco's Double Eagle successfully offered an upscale experience with the consistency of a chain. The steakhouse serves and celebrates beef above all things, particularly very big, special, rare, well-aged, and expensive cuts. Double Eagle's menu includes showstoppers like seafood towers and desserts, and it once stood atop its perch as a very nice restaurant to have a very nice meal on a special occasion in which money was no object. In September 2019, when Landry's Group purchased both Del Frisco's Double Eagle Steakhouse and Del Frisco's Grill, the brand sat at a total of 71 eateries. That deal closed just before the pandemic hit. and government-ordered shutdowns and subsequent labor shortages created an economic crisis that made it extremely tough for even large chains to operate at a profit. As of 2023, the Del Frisco's name graces just 17 Double Eagle Steakhouse locations and 17 grill restaurants.
I'm going to work as hard as anybody can work to make the Miami Dolphins a winner as close as in the near future as I possibly can.
If the slow decline of Shula's is any indication, celebrity-owned restaurants and steakhouses in particular could be a dying breed. The first Shula Steakhouse opened in 1989 in Miami Lakes, Florida. It wasn't far from where its namesake, Don Shula, coached the Miami Dolphins for 26 seasons and won 2 Super Bowls, making himself a local legend. The business grew into Shula's restaurants, operators of a few dozen restaurants of various levels, but Shula's Steakhouse remained the flagship brand, offering a fine dining experience and a signature series of premium cuts of all kinds of meat. By 2017, over 30 Shula's restaurants were in business, but as of 2023, that number sits at 15, with only 6 being Shula's steakhouses. A restructuring to reduce the number of Shula's concepts from 6 to 3 shrunk the company to make it more viable. Then, once packed and illustrious Shula's locations closed down in Indianapolis, St. Louis, Allentown, and Birmingham, a new ownership group sought to move away from the Shula name, even rebranding the Miami Lakes Shula's restaurant as ML Steakhouse.